Chelsea, in my opinion, is no longer a serious club. They've essentially appointed someone because he works within the group.
Managers are not managers anymore.
I just don't see how this becomes a success.
What are we doing here?
Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of Chelsea Exposed. It's been some week if you're a Chelsea fan. We last spoke to you before Christmas, so hope you had a lovely Christmas and a very happy new year. It hasn't been such a happy new year for Enzo Maresca, who's walked away from Chelsea. He's now no longer the Chelsea manager and they're expecting a replacement. I've got with me Alex Harris from Chelsea Fan TV and Tom Sheen from The Sun to discuss all things Maresca, Rosenior, Man City. So let's start with that City game. Thoughts?
It was a good point, actually, to be fair. I mean, if we're going to start on a positive, the away section was empty in many sections. You know, a lot of empty seats, a lot of people that didn't want to come to the game for obvious reasons. They're just sick of what they're seeing. But actually, Callum McFarlane started off with a game plan, didn't work at all in the first half. And he made great changes in the second half. I felt like a lot of the players had a lot more freedom, especially up top. You could see that we were vulnerable defensively, but a lot of last-ditch tackles, even when we were giving away the ball. Like, we managed to save ourselves at times with individual brilliance in terms of the defending. And I felt like Palmer looked free, you know, of the shackles. He was moving all over the pitch. There was link up with Delap when he came on. I think Delap... I always liked Delap, but I do think that Delap is just a player that needs more freedom as well. And I think Maresca, just on those two players, they were slightly restricted. But just going back to the game, it was a good point, and it was nice to see that there's still a little bit of passion in the club, even if it doesn't feel like it at times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought. Great points. I thought for me the biggest takeaway was Cole Palmer. Obviously, when he had his sort of best period at Chelsea, he was playing off the right and coming inside. And under Maresca, most of the time he's been playing strictly as a number 10. And like you say, it just restricts him. But him having that freedom off the right also allows Gusto to essentially play as a very high right wing. And as you say, it leaves us open defensively. But I think those two as a combination are stronger like that. Obviously, I mean, we'll speak about it. Reece James was incredible. I actually think Enzo is slightly better when he's not one of the two holding midfielders.
Yeah.
And then, Pedro Neto, I think, off the left. I like him off the right. I think he's better off the left. And it's just, it was really, really sort of... Well, I mean, he's not going to be the manager, but, it's encouraging to see that McFarlane, it didn't work first half. A little bit lucky to only be 1-0. And made changes that were really positive, but sort of ripped up the whole playbook that he had for the game. And we were much, much better than City second half.
Yeah, he looks like a good little coach. I wouldn't be surprised to see him at some point move within this multi-club model. Maybe somewhere in Brazil or Strasbourg will hold a place for him, maybe America. I think he's got a very bright future as a coach, and obviously the people within Chelsea trust him loads as well. But as you mentioned there, Reece James, I feel like he's someone we seem to talk about every week at the minute, because he's just been so good this season. I said in a piece last week that he's probably been Chelsea's player of the season so far, either him or Caicedo. But since he's been able to stay fit, he's been so consistent, playing in midfield as well. He's looked really good. Obviously, Tuchel in England prefer him as a right back. Everyone, I think, apart from Maresca, saw him as a right back, but he's proved that he can also be brilliant in midfield. He's played now against Declan Rice and come away with man of the match, playing as a midfielder. Played against Ballon d'Or winner Rodri, come away as man of the match. Is there anything he can't do?
If I was Tuchel, and I know, options are limited in certain places. One of our most limited positions for England is central midfield, whereas right back we've got all sorts of options. So I think it's, Tuchel hasn't tested him there either at Chelsea or for England, but you've got a couple of friendlies coming up that I would put him in midfield for alongside Rice. Like, how good a midfield pairing is that potentially? But like you say, he's just got everything, hasn't he? I think you could play him in goal, left wing, up front, and he'd probably be the best player as well. He's just an incredible athlete, incredible to watch, really high sort of football IQ. obviously loves Chelsea, and there was I don't know if you saw it. There was a nice moment yesterday where they're clapping the fans and McFarlane's in the background.
Yeah,
and he's the one to go and drag them, and
he's really become a proper leader, hasn't he? Now at Chelsea.
By the way, people criticise Maresca for saying that James wasn't a good enough leader, but have you not noticed since that point he's become a better leader?
Really.
People have tried to criticise what Maresca did. But surely that shaped him into more of a leader.
Yeah.
This isn't the Maresca show, by the way, but I mean, I presume we're going to speak about him a little bit. But yeah, like what's your take on it, Boy? I don't even know what your take is on the sacking. We haven't even spoken.
Well, let's move on to that then.
Sorry, I'm getting carried away.
That is the biggest thing that's happened. Obviously, the last episode you were here for, we spoke about reviewing the season so far. We said Maresca's done really well. He's really positive. I think we were saying they obviously need to get behind him and back him, and the fans had started to support him. And then over Christmas, really everything was flipped on its head. The Chelsea world was turned upside down. And really with Maresca, my personal opinion is that I thought he was a good enough manager. I didn't think he was necessarily amazing. I didn't think he was revolutionising everything at Chelsea, but I thought he had done a good enough job to be given time. But obviously, as we've seen time and time again with the ownership at Chelsea, once there's one of these kind of fallouts or disagreements, things tend to end relatively quickly after that. But what about you? What do you think on Maresca? Now he's gone, and we'll get on to his eventual replacement after that as well.
When we hired Maresca, it was him, Thomas Frank, or McKenna at Ipswich. So I never wanted any of them.
Yeah.
But I said Maresca's the best option that you've got out of those three, and including De Zerbi as well, because we know he's going to fall out with any owner, especially Clearlake. But no, Maresca, like he comes out of this job with his head held high.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't be surprised if he gets a City job if Guardiola leaves, if he gets the Juventus job, I'm hearing rumours that he might go to Man United because Amorim's been sacked.
At the moment, yeah.
You know, honestly, and I don't actually think that's the right appointment either. I think that he should wait for City.
Yeah.
I mean, that club is just beyond, savable. At least we have like recent history that we can lean on, and we know that it was only like 5-6 years ago we won the Champions League. So that for me gives Chelsea a little bit of power at the moment in terms of bringing players in and attracting players. But just going back to Maresca, he did the best with what he had. He did the best with what he had, and eventually had enough. And I think it says enough when a manager is willing to walk away from £14 million of compensation.
Yeah.
Imagine, can you imagine that? Like, I would happily stay at a job for another couple of weeks, couple of months for 14 grand, let alone 14 million. Yeah. So he feels strongly about what's going on at Chelsea. He clearly disagrees with it. And anybody who thinks that he's the biggest problem at the moment, you'll find another manager coming in. You might celebrate at that point, which would also confuse me if we are getting Rosenior in. And then we're going to have the same cycle. He is then going to get sick and tired once he, runs into some issues, once he has no flexibility, and he's going to want support. He's going to want support.
So what is... There's clearly a bigger problem at Chelsea because there's been this constant theme of a fallout with the board, and then the manager gets sacked, and then you're back to square one, starting again, investing again into the project that the manager is then forced to work with. What exactly is the crux of the issue at Chelsea?
I honestly think,
is there an issue? Because they've had success in recent seasons.
Modest success.
Without sounding too controversial, it's the Americanization of football.
Yeah.
Because it's happened at United, the same thing. Managers are not managers anymore. You look at Fergie, you look at Redknapp, you look at all these guys who have had good careers in English football. They're icons. They had control. They were calling players and saying, "Listen, I want you to play for me." They were making those phone calls. They were dealing with the budgets. They were managing not only the players, the staff. They knew everyone's names. And now we don't get a thank you. We don't get a goodbye from Maresca. He doesn't even want to get compensation from us. It goes to show that the heart and soul of football is being ripped out because ultimately people aren't allowed to do what they want to do. You know, I came here into this studio to have a chat with you boys. Imagine if you said, Alex, you're only allowed to speak for 10 seconds and then you need to be quiet.
Well, we got some bad news.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the same thing that's going on, is managers are going in to do a job and implement a philosophy, and then they've been told, actually, no, you can't do that. You've got to do it our way. So I don't really see how that works.
I mean, if you look at, you know, Amorim's gone today. If you look at his statements over the weekend, he makes exactly the same point as you. I came in to be a manager, not a head coach. Now, there's a very clear difference between the two roles. So, as you say, manager has control of transfers, has control of budgets, has control of which players are coming and going. A head coach doesn't have any of that control. Maresca didn't have any of that control. You know, if you go back to last summer, there was a quite a pointed press conference where he spoke about Colwill had just been injured. I need a centre back.
Yeah.
They're not giving me a centre back. We'll have to sort of find a solution with blah blah blah. Now, as a journalist for nearly 20 years, that's a very obvious calling out the hierarchy, saying get me a centre back. I'm not happy. We don't go it. We don't do it. We go on and buy. You know, I think Garnacho came a day or two later.
Yeah.
Another winger that we didn't need. So that 40 million to me, if you're serious about wanting to be successful and backing your manager, you bring in the player. But as Alex says, the project is the commercialisation of football, and ultimately it's Chelsea now aren't interested, or I shouldn't say Chelsea, I should say Clear Lake Blue Co. They're not interested in competing at the very highest level, whatever it takes. You know, spending money, spending bad money, buying experienced players because they're not good investments. It's just an investment vehicle.
We spoke to a football insider, myself and Dan King, last week, and they said Chelsea need to decide whether they want to be a football club or a player trading company.
100%. And you heard it yesterday. You was at the game, but I was watching it on the telly. Neville, throughout the first half, he's saying, you know, Chelsea are really good. They're really close. If only they had a couple of experienced players in the team to actually, you know, Reece James is captain, great player. He's not an experienced player. If you had a couple of sort of older heads in the team, bringing the other boys along, when there is those moments when you're not at your very best, you can ride it out and stuff.
I don't even know if it's experienced players or if it's
world-class
quality players.
It is,
because there's the likes of Haaland. Like, Chelsea didn't go and buy that calibre of striker.
No.
I think it's more of
we're always
quality
looking
than...
for things, and this is what I mean. I don't know how doom and gloom you want to get, but if you look at Cole Palmer, he's the jewel in the crown of the club. Right?
Yeah.
If we continue on the road that we're on, I think, and we don't end up qualifying for Champions Leagues, or we don't end up getting to latter stages of the Champions League, or we don't win trophies and all the rest of it, why would he stay at Chelsea? And why would Chelsea keep him? Because we didn't spend that much.
Because they're going to make profit on it.
We didn't make that. We didn't pay that much for him. So immediately, not only is he our very best player, he's a fantastic investment. He's a fantastic bit of business. Here's £40 million. We can sell him for 100, 120, 150, whatever price we want to put on it. We can then amortise that money over the next 8 years. We can bolt. You know, it's not football, is it? You know,
no.
When Abramovich was in charge, and we were already the best football team in England and winning trophies and getting to later stages, he went out and bought Shevchenko and Ballack and all these big stars. Not that they necessarily worked, Shevchenko especially, but that was the kind of, you're at the top level, but you need to keep pushing up to the next level. And to go back to Maresca, and as I say, head coach versus manager, who are the two best managers in England at the moment? Arteta and Pep. Their roles are manager. When Arteta signed a new contract a couple of years ago, he changed the wording from head coach to manager purely for that reason, so that he could go out and be like, no, I'm the one in charge, you back me, these are the players I need, these are the players I want. That's how you have success at the top level. You have to operate as a football club, not as a trading company.
The fact that we're even having this conversation just speaks volumes.
Yeah.
Are we a football club or a player trading platform? What is this conversation? What are we doing here? Yeah. And when we speak about Palmer...
And with Chelsea as well, it's not like, you know, Brighton and Brentford and whoever else have success with that model because they don't have the, you know, years of success, history, global fan base, all the rest of it. This is Chelsea. You know, we're one of the biggest clubs in Europe. But yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all right. It's all right. I spoke with Dean Saunders the other day, and he said players are going to sit back in the armchair on these long contracts. I said, no, Dean, they're stuck behind prison bars because they can't get out. That's the problem. And then you get Palmer who wants to leave, but he's on like an 8-9 year deal.
Yeah.
So we have the power, and ultimately, he's not going to want to sit on, do Raheem Sterling for 8 years, is he? So he's going to have to play. But then you lose the passion, you lose the willingness to actually want to play. And this is exactly what we're worried about, that we're losing. But yeah, I think it's ridiculous. I don't know if you know about the protest that's been organised.
Yeah.
Protest
on the 17th,
at 1 o'clock before the Brentford game.
Yeah, but a lot bigger now.
Well, a lot of people criticised the last protest.
Yeah.
I was at the last one.
You were at the last protest.
Not as a protester, but I was there.
Yeah, there was like 300 people, something like that. It was a good turnout for a first protest. Was it anything like this? The Super League? Absolutely not. And people are saying, "Oh, it's got to be just like that." I don't think we're going to get another protest like the Super League. You've got to look at the timings as well with COVID. Everybody had been inside and they just wanted to go out and have a few drinks and get out and about. But yeah, I mean, we need to make our voices heard as fans, because I think, quite frankly, it's getting to the point now where people are questioning, why am I even following this club? Because I'm showing the ambition to try and make it happen. I got back from Manchester today. I was in Manchester. And, I'm going to be going to Fulham. I'm going to go to Charlton. I'm going to go to Arsenal. Do I think that we're going to go to Arsenal and win? I actually thought we could.
Yeah.
But then a brief comes out that we don't care if we don't win the Carabao Cup. I mean, why are people releasing this information?
Yeah. It's interesting you say about Maresca turning down the money as well. But if you look at, it's not just Maresca, is it? Pochettino had that great end to the season when he, was in charge. We don't know exactly what happens because, briefs come out from both sides. But ultimately, I understand that Poch can agree with the hierarchy on what he wanted in the summer. And that's the reason he left.
And he worked with Daniel Levy for 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years.
And going
couldn't
further
last
back,
1 year at Clear Lake.
Going further back to Tuchel, the exact same thing. They fell out immediately over the sort of 4-4-3 formation that they put on the board for him, and then within a few weeks and months, results were bad, whatever. But he couldn't work with them. So if you're in a toxic relationship and it's always you that's the one being toxic, then it tells you something, doesn't it? It's just going to be for me, as I say, doom and gloom. It will be a cycle for X amount of time.
So we obviously feel very passionately, all of us, I think, about Maresca being gone, but there is going to be a new horizon at Chelsea, and it looks as though that's going to be Liam Rosenior. We're waiting on possibly an announcement of him today as the new Chelsea, is it head coach, I believe they say now. What are your thoughts on Rosenior? We'll go straight to you, Shino, because I've spoke to you already.
I've got a lot of thoughts, and for the sake of how long this podcast is going to be, I'll try and keep them brief. But I think ultimately for me, and I say, put Chelsea on a certain pedestal of stature. One of the biggest clubs in England, one of the biggest clubs in Europe, multiple time league champions, Champions League winners, major trophies. There is nothing in Rosenior's CV, if we put it in those terms, that tells me that he's capable of being a Chelsea manager today. That's not to say, he won't grow into one or he won't become one day. But if you look through his history, was at Derby as an interim boss after Rooney. 12 games, they went with Paul Warne instead.
Yeah.
He won 7 out of 12 games. That's not good enough for Derby. Goes to Hull City. I think he was there 18 months. Ends up finishing 7th. Gets sacked because the chairman at the time said he didn't play good enough football.
Too defensive.
Yeah. Now goes to Strasbourg. Okay, they're having an okay season. Qualified for the Conference League last year. They've won 5 and drawn 1 out of the Conference League group stages. Great, they're 7th in the league. But if you're Chelsea Football Club, and to me, fans' expectations is to be challenging, not even winning the title, like challenging for the title, getting to the top 4, challenging for trophies, you have to have a manager that equals that stature. And to go back to Maresca, I don't think he was, at the time, a good enough appointment. He obviously proved to be a decent appointment. Certain things were good, certain things were bad. But to me, it's just, they've essentially appointed someone because he works within the group.
Yeah.
There are managers out there available right now who have much more on their CV in terms of management, in terms of players. There's no Chelsea connection, which again, it's not the most important thing, but for fans, it's important.
Yeah.
If it starts going wrong quickly, are Chelsea fans going to be singing one Liam Rosenior or whatever the song is going to be? Like, it's not going to be a fun place for him to be. So I just think it's, to me, like we were saying earlier in terms of the recruitment and the playing staff, it's an admission that Chelsea, in my opinion, is no longer a serious club at the top of world football. We are now a trading vehicle or whatever. John Terry, Xavi. If you go John Terry route, they've got the same level of badges.
Yeah.
Terry's never been a manager, fine, but he's got a Chelsea connection, so immediately he's going to get a little bit more of a buffer
bit
zone.
of an atmosphere as well.
You've got someone like Xavi, one of the best footballers ever, has won La Liga as a Barcelona manager. Obviously, it didn't end up so there's options out there, but no, we've gone for the cheap option because he's already part of the Clear Lake Blue Co family, for want of a better word. It's just absolutely crazy.
Alex, what are your thoughts? Firstly, on a bit of what Shino was just talking about. Is Rosenior the kind of manager that you wanted to see Chelsea go for? And secondly, obviously it's very negative at the moment, but is there a way that he succeeds? Is there a method to the Blue Co madness?
I'm going to speak from a match-going fan's perspective, and I think there is one positive that I can take from it. And I am not a fan of this appointment. I said, please, Liam, reject us, please. And he's at the airport. He's come to London. It's going to happen, isn't it? I'm not a fan of booing players. I'm not a fan of booing managers. I don't think I'll ever do it. It's just not how it's just not what I do. Yeah. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I think the one thing that we can hope for is that at least we can be fun to watch. And that's literally the only positive that I can give you. If we can give Palmer more freedom, if we can give, the likes of Esteval the chance to link up with Palmer regularly, if we can have fullbacks playing as fullbacks and overlapping, these are things that will entertain fans like myself that are going to games. And
just whilst you're talking about that, because he's obviously at Strasbourg, he plays this variation of the 3-4-3, which obviously this week has been more prominent than ever, with Amorim now being sacked as well. But I personally, whilst we're talking about the positives, I quite like when Chelsea historically have played that three at the back system, and I think it is something that could get the best out of definitely Reece James. Malo Gusto I really like overlapping on the right.
Yes.
And also, I mean, you look at what he's done with Diego Moreira at Strasbourg, who was a failed winger essentially at Chelsea, and he's turned him into a really good left wing back in France. I think they could possibly do the same thing with Pedro Neto. Works obviously incredibly hard. Hasn't showed again in the City game that he hasn't really got that finishing touch, that killer instinct of a attacking winger that maybe Esteval has got if they develop him, and he could become a really good asset on the left side. I think there are some positives to take, but I hope they do kind of change the system and it allows a few of those positives to shine through.
Definitely. And that's all we can look for. And really, this is match-going fans that are going to feel that more than anything. Because if you're sitting at home, you want to be entertained, but it's different, because
you haven't spent money travelling.
You haven't made the trip and the effort. Like, it's fine winning 1-0, but I've said this before and I'll say it again. I'd rather finish 6th playing attractive football than finish 3rd or 4th playing boring football.
Yeah.
Well, that is exactly why he got sacked at Hull. I was writing about that this morning, and the Hull owner, when he sacked him, said he'd rather finish lower down the table, losing 4-3, than get a point and draw 0-0. Yeah. Because in other games you'll go and win 4-1 rather than draw 0-0. Yeah. So the positives come with the negatives, and you feel the same way?
The only reason Maresca got away with the style of football was because he won the Conference League, he won the Club World Cup against all the nobody expected that. And we got Champions League. I'm not giving the guy praise because he was just another manager that I want to give time to. He did it in his first season. So it's not even about, I don't know what I expect from Rosenior. Like, I didn't know what to expect against C. We got a point, and generally people are quite happy with that. That's sort of where we're at now. I think we're turning into sort of vibes FC, really.
I just think I just think the way that everything's going is just, we're now, I've come to the terms with it. Lots of people might think I'm overreacting, but I just feel like we're no longer a top tier, top draw. Arsenal, Man City are away. They're in a different level to us. We're now the sort of second tier.
Yeah.
In there with Tottenham and
who do you think in this Rosenior era, as it begins at Chelsea, who needs to step up in order for it? Doesn't even necessarily have to be just players, but who needs to step up and make differences and changes in order for Chelsea to get back to that level?
I mean, it's got to be the recruitment, hasn't it? It's got to be Stanley and Stewart, who are not going to get sacked. But I think a lot of fans would argue they should be. Joe Shields as well is included in that. Sam Jewell is also. But how many sporting directors we got? We've got so many sporting directors. We just brought in David Fallows from Liverpool.
Guy,
So these are the people that are ultimately. If you're telling me the manager doesn't have control of all of the substitutions because the medical team have control of that. He can't control the transfers.
Yeah, because that's recruitment.
Then you better get the transfers right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really all we can, say. I mean, apparently, according to Wayne Rooney, Rosenior's a great coach.
Yeah.
If that means anything.
That's what everyone says. He's got his pro license. He's a great coach, really driven, will be successful one day. But to go back to my point, he's just not got the CV for me that a Chelsea manager should have. When in Chelsea's very recent past, you've got. Even go back further, you've got like the likes of Ancelotti or, Scolari didn't work out, but he's the Brazil manager's won a World Cup. Like that's where we were at, and that's now where we are at. And I just think that it's adding to all the other stuff where talking about assets rather than players, and talking about amortisation and long contracts and buy low, sell high stuff. This isn't why I watch football. I watch football to be entertained, to try and win things, not to worry about what the spreadsheet says at the end of it. Like, if I want to do that, I'll watch the XL World Championships or something. But it's just,
I like that one.
Yeah, it's just I just don't see how this becomes a success, because how it becomes a success is good players playing well, and then we just sell them anyway.
Yeah.
And then. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a bit sort of, not that I've spoke a lot, but I'm a bit lost for words at how we got here, because go back to if Roman in charge or sort of an ownership group that is more football focused, you can't allow Chelsea to get into the sort of state we're at with lots of different things.
Yeah, well, it's been a fairly rough festive period and New Year to be a Chelsea fan, to be a Chelsea reporter, to be associated in any way with Chelsea, but we're not going to sit here and let it mope on our whole day. That's all we got time for, unfortunately, for this episode. But thank you very much for watching. Let us know in the comments below what you think of the impending appointment of Liam Rosenior. Let us know what you think of Enzo Maresca going, and if you think Rosenior can be the man for Chelsea to get the best out of the likes of Cole Palmer, Esteval, Reece James, Enzo Fernandez, £200 million midfielders in there. Can Rosenior be the one to finally last longer than 20 months as manager of Chelsea? Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. We'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Goodbye.